So let's present again. We'll make sure that the audio is on and just have a little bit of fun with Apologia here. And I'm not going to be incredibly detailed as I'm doing this series with Stated Clearly. There's been no rebuttal or challenge yet. I saw at least a couple comments actually on our good friend of the channel, Dr. Dan Stern Cardinal, good old creation myths. I've seen a couple comments, people asking him to respond. And so people are seeing that endogenous retroviruses are not on the side of the evolutionists. They belong to the biblical creationists. So it's time for the evolutionists to step up. Let's see what they got. They need to put forth a superior model. All right, guys, here we go. Let's have a little bit of fun with this.
What makes ERVs so compelling is that they can't be explained away as simple mutations or mistakes. They are later foreign instruction.
Again, that's why the question is, are these really are these really the ancient remnants of past viral infections, viral DNA, or are they created units of DNA function? We've demonstrated that a sophisticated model recognizes the fact that you do have true ERVs, because some retroviruses, exogenous retroviruses, do get past our defense mechanisms. We know that endogenous retroviruses, the fixed, the functional, the pre-existing ones, they fight off exogenous retroviruses. They act in the immune system. They fight off invaders. Okay. And the components of the ERV, same thing. You got the LTR, GAG, POL, ENV is your envelope protein. And these genes, code for reverse transcriptase, integrase, protease, and they're all involved in their functions. They're all involved in the immune system, helping to fight off these viruses. So yes, occasionally you'll get an exogenous retrovirus that makes its way into the germ cell line. It might be passed on. Okay. But those aren't going to be fixed. They're not going to be as functional as these ERVs that we see in embryological development. And the majority of so-called ERV sequences are simply solo LTRs. And so it's the evolutionist that assumes or presupposes that those are ERVs, but degenerated ERVs. No, we understand that these solo LTRs, and Apologia needs to address this, they serve as binding sites for initiating or enhancing gene expression. Gene expression being the process by which a gene is turned on to produce a functional RNA or a protein. Okay. Gene regulation, gene expression. We have all these important functions, and ERVs are involved in them. These various classes of retrotransposons. ERVs act as enhancers, transcription start sites for this process of gene expression, and also as promoters. The proteins in the ERVs, as I said earlier, they can amplify immune system responses. They're very important, and they bind to very specific receptors to carry out these operational roles. Okay, so show us, Apologia, how did these functional roles come about? Does he understand our model? Because it's a mix. But the ones that are fixed, the ones that are functional, pre-existing for the most part, those are created. Now, you might have a subpopulation that has an ERV where it's not fixed, certainly not functional in embryological development. We can say that's a true ERV. Okay, so Apologia seems to have just a very unsophisticated, outdated view of this debate. This debate has, it's advanced a lot, put it that way.
That make no sense to say they were in the original. For this debate, we're going to be agreeing to an original designer.
No, it does make sense. In the same way that all modes of transportation have very many similarities, okay, in common. They share a lot in common. For the same reason, all these modes of transportation have engines. Yeah, it makes sense that they're there, because without an engine, the car's not going to get very far. Engines are good. They're beneficial. Okay, this is good design. And these ERVs, they function in determining cell types. They function in the immune system and cell stress responses. They function in embryological development, to where if we didn't have them, mammals wouldn't exist. I like to exist. Hopefully Apologia likes to exist. The listener likes to exist. And so guess what? Without ERVs, we wouldn't exist. Without an engine, that car is not doing much. It's going to be a show car. It's going to sit there. It's not going anywhere. So this is good design. And so that's an assertion from Apologia that he can't back up.
Of life. ERVs tell us that the design for the various kinds happened over time, not all at once, and
the best explanation for ERVs also goes back to the bigger question that I've challenged John Perry to answer. What is the origin of retroviruses in general? Because retroviruses require a host to replicate. And so what came first, the host or the retrovirus? Well, it can't be the retrovirus. It has to be the host, because the retrovirus needs a host to replicate. And the host has cells. The host has genes, genetics. And so God creates the original created kinds. He creates Adam and Eve. He creates them with high levels of heterozygosity. In other words, in a state of DNA diversity, in order that variation can come about. God said, be fruitful and multiply, not be fruitful and clone yourselves. So heterozygosity makes sense. Homozygosity would be in a state of no diversity. God doesn't want clones. He likes variation. And in an ever-changing world, ever-changing environments requires ever-changing genomes. So this makes sense from a design perspective. And so God also front loads living organisms with all kinds of functional DNA elements, like endogenous retroviruses and endogenous retroviral-like sequences. They have a function, they have a benefit, they're shared for common design purposes. And over time, because of the fall, because of degeneration, because of mutation accumulation, errors in the packaging process, you have these retroviruses, the exogenous retroviruses, they escape, the escapee hypothesis. And even many in the conventional world are proposing a similar origin, the escapee hypothesis for retroviruses, because they understand this paradox. But the biblical creationists has the far better explanation. And I went into that model in great detail in episode 3 of my series responding to John Perry. So I do recommend people check that out. I just want you to see here that Apologia is simply not up to task, and he's outdated on what's being discussed and debated in the endogenous retrovirus controversy.
Definitely reusing corrupted components instead of perfect blueprints.
They're not corrupted components. We understand that ERVs, again, have these important functional roles. And one of their main functional roles, which they require the sequence similarity to exogenous retroviruses to be able to carry out, is they function in tumor suppression. And so basically they fight off these tumors, they destroy these tumors, and they do it through viral mimicry. And so they need that specific design, LTR, GAG, POL, ENV. Okay, they need to share that sequence similarity to exogenous retroviruses. Plus, if exogenous retroviruses came from host genomes and host cells, then of course they're going to have those similarities. But basically, when a cell is under stress, okay, these transcribed ERV elements or ERV elements, they give the appearance of being invaded by a viral infection. So that cell looks like it's being invaded by a virus. And what that does is it targets, by the immune system, it targets that cell more destruction. As we know, tumor cells can evade detection, but this mechanism, this function, can allow the immune system to see that tumor cell and destroy it. And this is incredible, but it's all mediated by the guardian of the genome, which is the p53 protein. And that helps these tumor cells to become detectable by the immune system. And from there, the immune system now has the ability to clear those tumor cells from the body. Great design. This isn't a big mistake. This isn't the result of ancient viral infections in the past. Apologia, you need to advance a sophisticated response or counter to these arguments, because you're out of date on what is being discussed, not only by informed creationists on this topic, but also in the technical literature.
ERVs tell us that the designer created the first life and then let it diversify, at least somewhat unguided. To me, that's far more awe-inspiring than...
Yes, we can see which ERVs actually came about after creation and after the flood. and then specifically after the Tower of Babel dispersal, based on the frequency of these ERVs.